All right, so I decided to, put a lot of my game journal entries into videos and post them just to see what y'all think, see what if y'all you know, coincide with my thoughts as well as, maybe have your own opinions on the matter, and that's completely fine. That's what this channel is for, just being able to talk about games and being able to understand some good things, some bad things, and some things that just are revolutionary. Um, so that being said, this channel is just going to be a large mass of game journal entries from games that I've played in the past. Starting with the most recent, just because they're the most fresh in my mind. I'll have to go back and play some of the older games, which I'm definitely excited about. Definitely, something maybe going back and playing games all the way back to the PS2, like you know, Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup, and maybe even the SpongeBob SquarePants game. But for now, we're going to start with the more recent games. Um, and today, I'm going to specifically be talking about the game Starfield. Now, I know the game came out, uh, few months ago, and I gotta say it's a fantastic game. Fantastic game. I will also say that it didn't hit on every mark that I thought it was going to, but nonetheless, it was a fantastic game. It just had, a really great story that, kind of took you across the galaxy, and, having that free reign option of just being able to go and do these things, and made the game feel extremely, replayable, as well as, the idea of having a new game plus, which is something that I've seen a lot in recent games, especially recent big games. And notably, I'm going to be talking about Elden Ring a lot because of recent games. They're definitely the pinnacle of what kind of game you should be creating and how you should be going about it. Maybe not how difficult that game was, but definitely the ideas and mechanics that they really brought into that game is going to be something that I'll touch on quite a bit over the course of these entries. So that being said, back to Starfield. Now, the story of Starfield, and I promise I won't spoil anything too much. Um, Mainly, I just want to talk about how it did play well. Um, the the notion of coming from nothing to then discovering these powers, and what all of these different things are in the universe was certainly interesting and captivating. I thought the voice acting was pretty good, um, amongst all the NPC characters. The dialogue was also um, really well differentiated in the responses that you could give to kind of define your own play style and define the kind of person that you are. Now, obviously, some answers are going to have negative effects, and that's common with most games with these kind of dialogue options. But I kind of, bring it back to, how Skyrim was giving you a lot of dialogue options, and obviously this is a Bethesda game, so they've done well in doing that. But again, yeah, there is always, kind of one steady answer that will keep the quest progressing and all of that. But it is always interesting to learn a little bit more about a certain character or what they believe in the game, because sometimes they could be wacky and cool, or sometimes it could be rather serious and, possibly even dangerous. But the story as a whole, I mean, it definitely had a good, how should I put that? It definitely have a good plot line that that you could easily understand and track. Um, but it does remind me a lot of how they did it in Skyrim. I mean, going from Dragonborn to something called Starborn. I mean, they could have picked something a little bit more unique than just something born. I get that. I get that in Skyrim you were Dragonborn, you were born of dragon blood, and you could, you know, speak the language and all of that of those dragons. And Starborn is, something that occurs to you later in the game after you touch Unity or go through the Unity. Um, it was definitely very familiar when I started, playing more and more into the game, but it eventually just got to a point of being just slightly different enough to not make me think about it. So I guess I can give them props to that. But for the most part, it was very similar to what I had thought it was going to, uh, of what I was thinking was like, which was uh, Skyrim. Now going into the new game plus, I mean, again, great concept. The replayability and all of that is definitely paramount in games today. Just having, people spend a ton of time playing your game, and absolutely Starfield requires a lot of time being played in the game, from outposting to just doing random missions. It almost feels endless, especially, if you have to do the missions for Constellation and have to, run around this entire planet looking for geophysical, anomaly or a gravitational anomaly or signs of life and all of that. Now, I will say it is brutal in a lot of those games. I mean, a lot of those planets, just because most of them are rather barren. You don't really see a lot of things going on. It's just basically um, a landmass texture that you just run around and just look for stuff. And the time between to run from your ship to one of those features, it feels like an eternity. Mostly because there's just not a lot of stuff going on the planet. Now, sure, there are some planets that will have life forms, and some of them will be a lot more prevalent than others. And I would say that those planets that have, a lot of those life forms are certainly more enjoyable to go to because, it's an opportunity to get more XP or, find a material that you needed. And in a lot of ways, the game hit well on. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. My dog was sniffing around, looking a little suspect. But uh, just going back to just the overall openness or emptiness of some of these worlds just made them really tough to travel to and made the game feel extremely long. Especially like some of those certain missions where you have to scan an entire system was a daunting task. I mean, it certainly was. It was one of those tasks that felt so trivial and just not as fun after you did it the first couple times, just because it was essentially the same thing, just basically running around on these planets that didn't have any real life, and probably all the resources they had were the exact same that you've already seen to this point. so it's not even worth setting up an outpost. So I mean, that was really the problem with those types of missions, and just the time to go through. Now, this is probably my biggest problem with Starfield is that I thought it was going to be a lot more seamless, and it really wasn't. You know, um, I know a lot of games have tried to cut down on loading screens and cinematic scenes that basically just serve as a loading screen. Um, a lot of games have really cut that down just because of the hardware and all that is just so much better nowadays. But the fact that I have to go through like three different menu screens to just land on a planet is gross. I'm just gonna say it was gross. The the problem is that I feel that maybe I've taken maybe 2 to 5 minutes just to find that right place to land. And then from there, now I would never do this because it's a long walk to that edge, but it's not even possible to just continue going through the entire planet. Now, I get that it's all procedurally generated, and to be honest, I feel like, Minecraft has done this extremely well. I get that their graphics aren't as complex, but being able to just run seamlessly in a straight line and kind of keep going was definitely the appeal that I thought I was going to see in Starfield, just the ability to land on these planets and do those things. But then, I got into the game and I had to go to a menu screen, click on a button, click on where I wanted to land, and then land there. And then I have to go through an entire cutscene of the ship landing on the thing before I can actually get out and explore. So now I've wasted maybe, couple minutes just, figuring that all out, along with, the time it took to even get to that planet. If it was on one end of the star map to another, it would take me a few grab jumps, which that's more menu screens each time I have to grab jump. So it's just like one of those problems that it just really slows down the pace of play, and the feeling of like you're actually in the action. Now I get that in real world physics and astrodynamics and all of that, like it would take quite a long time even if you were going the speed of light to get across the galaxy. So I mean, I guess I understand it in that situation, but I mean, obviously the game tries to, show it as fast as possible. But even still, just the menu screens really definitely slow down the playtime, and it just definitely make you make you feel like you're not really in the action anymore. Um, but moving on from that, I'll talk a little bit more about the aesthetics of the game. So I really appreciated the game's aesthetics, just because it was very much that open world. Um, well, I should actually go back and say that it kind of has multiple aesthetics. There are certain missions and um, certain aspects of the game that can definitely be kind of terrifying and scary, and that comes with the dutifully named terror morphs. Missions like that, or missions where you're kind of going into this abandoned area that has all these monsters running around, and all of that, where it's dark, it's ominous. You have a fixed way to go. it definitely fit that kind of horror element, as well as you have games where you're kind of, I mean, not games, you have missions where you're flying out in space, taking out these bad guys in their ships, and it just kind of changes the whole dynamic of what the game is really about. And it definitely fits into a lot of different design aesthetics while going through mission to mission. And I think that was the point, just because if we're talking about an entire galaxy, you're going to be seeing a myriad of different things, right? You're going to be going through planets that have nothing to planets that have everything, because of they're in this habitable zone, and they have all the life, the fauna, the flora, all that kind of stuff. So it's an it's an interesting way to display the aesthetics throughout the game, and I think the designers did well, especially for the main storylines, and then even the separate faction storylines. Like, they're all very different in the way that they approach things. And I'll tell you, spoiler alert coming. I had a really good time talking. I'm playing all of these faction side quests because they were actually really well done, I would say. Um, there was a lot of like story elements, and just the what you got to do in those types of events was certainly a lot of fun. I mean, first thing is, you join the Freestar Rangers, and you're going around, hunting down these mercenaries, or pirates, or spacers, or whatever they're called in the game. And you have a whole bunch of different missions where you're taking them out, both with your ship, and with your 2 feet on the ground in some cases. um, and that kind of changes over to the storyline of the UC Vanguard, where you're literally taking on Terramorphs, and you have to talk to this guy who is generally a quite evil guy, who kind of is like trying to take over the world by turning these heat leeches into these you know dangerous beasts of Terramorphs. And I thought that storyline was absolutely fantastic, just with all the things that you had to do and had to talk about with this guy and learn about it. It certainly was a situation that made you really feel connected to the story and what was going on with it. Now, sidetracking to the Ryujin Industries um, quest line, it was certainly not. I would say certainly not as fun as I was expecting. It was certainly interesting. Obviously, there was a lot of twists and turns, and who's selling information, or giving information to the other guys, and trying to ascend their way to the top. Now, that obviously it was a interesting situation to deal with. The missions, however, were definitely not as fulfilling. I know some people really like that stealth aspect, but after playing so much of the game and kind of running in everywhere, guns blazing, it certainly was a real big change of pace, and it was also a struggle, just because I hadn't really upgraded that skill. So um, it was definitely a struggle to continue, doing what they wanted me to do and get the best possible outcome from it. There's a few times where I just felt that it was almost impossible not to get seen, and when I did, that's when quickly changed to just guns blazing again. So it was it was still really fun to kind of experience all those different side quests and quest lines that really they did a good job with it. because it definitely made you feel a lot more connected to what this world has to offer. And you know, it also really kind of showcased the kinds of challenges that you're going to see throughout the storyline and throughout the rest of the game, where you're going to have to take on random people who are going to fight you in in space, as well as all these random people who are going to be landed next to your outpost, and you're going to have to make sure you're prepared, and all those kinds of things, and hunting down terramorphs and all of that. So it was certainly a really really good opportunity to learn a lot more about the world and learn a lot more about the lore and everything behind it. Um, so definitely going back to the aesthetics, I think there were many aesthetics and just kind of the play style that you wanted to go with. If you wanted to be, a stealth person, with a big sniper rifle and, get that extra damage due to a stealth kill, then, do it. I mean, it's certainly a play style that's beneficial, and almost all of them are. That's another thing that I will talk about, and I'll switch over to the mechanics. Uh, one of the things that I really liked is that there are so many different styles of play, and it's relatively easy to get to the style of play that you really want. Um, for me, I played a lot with pistols because I got a pistol early on that was really high damage. Sure, it was only 5 or 6 shots, but it was insanely high damage, and I was one tapping a lot of these random guys early on in the game, and it felt so satisfying. And when I saw that I had the ability to upgrade specifically pistol damage, I thought to myself, well, damn, I'm just gonna do that because I already have the highest damage gun being that pistol. Might as well increase it, and then I don't have to worry too much about hoarding around a whole bunch of other guns that are just gonna weigh me down. So, the ability to pick, those kinds of skills that you really want and have those skills be very specific to something in the game was definitely a really smart idea, because it definitely allowed for, people early on to, maximize their build and their archetype for the character, as well as, later on you learn more of these skills, and you get better in other avenues of the game, whether that be you get better at stealth, or you get better at rifle shooting, you get better at reloading, or something like that, even all the way to just getting better on your spaceship, which is definitely something I would recommend everyone do very early. That first spaceship, the Frontier, I believe, can't even remember the name because I switched out of it so quick. It is very, very difficult early on to destroy enemies with your ship. So upgrade it fast, upgrade it quick, and hopefully get a new ship. If you do one of the quest lines, you get a very powerful ship, and that is, very fun. It looks good. Obviously you can change it to however you want it to look, but looks a lot better than the Frontier, and definitely handles a lot better as well as shoots a lot better. So definitely do that if you haven't already. So um, I would say the only downside is some of the some of the traits or skills feel like they don't really have a big use. I would say in a lot of ways this comes from the idea that if you're not using a particular weapon, or you're not really wanting to be the person to talk yourself out of a lot of situations, then it's kind of a moot point to go and upgrade those skills because they're not really utilized or you're not going to use them. Like I remember after playing so much of the Ryujin stuff, I got the manipulation skill for free, and I can tell you that I haven't used it once since then. And it's I mean, it was cool when I was going through the mission, but it just didn't end up being, as good as I really had thought. And, I always kind of felt that I, had a better experience in the game when I ran into somewhere, guns blazing and all of that. And I originally started the game with the empath skill. So, being able to talk my way out of situations rather than manipulate is going to give me a boost. So, I would do that if I wasn't already going in guns blazing. So um, that's what I did, and it definitely made for a very interesting style of play where I could kind of pick my battles. But after getting so far into the game and leveling up so many times, having all the skills pretty much maxed, it just all the skills that I wanted pretty much maxed because boy, let me tell you, it takes a long time to get all those skills leveled up. But having all the skills that I wanted to be maxed just made the game a lot easier um, and just better quality of life when I was playing the game. I didn't feel like I was just getting destroyed all the time, and I don't really have to worry too much about my ship being destroyed because it's a heck of a lot stronger because of the skills that I picked. But that aspect aside, I mean, if you're not really somebody who wants to utilize the ship, a lot of those technology skills are good for nothing. I mean, if you're somebody who just likes to grab, jump away, like more power to you. I mean, everybody has their own play style. Everybody has their own, way of going about things. But, it felt like, those types of skills would be a problem, mainly due to the fact that if somebody doesn't want to do that kind of stuff, they're missing out on a huge portion of that skill tree. Um, and maybe all they're doing is just the stuff with the digipicks, and that's it. Because beyond that, I mean, all the rest of that stuff is pretty much for, your ship. And if they don't really want to upgrade that, then that's what they want to do. Um, so other mechanics that I really, really enjoyed in the game, I think the shooting was pretty good. Um, actually, you know what? Scratch that. The shooting felt really, really bad, but the difference in guns was really good. So like, you have, a difference in multiple different styles of pistols and, some of them performed in a different way than others. And obviously you had the opportunity to upgrade those, which is another great mechanic. I always love that about games like this is the ability to upgrade and, change the powers of the gun. Fantastic, fantastic idea, and definitely something that everyone should be continuing to do. Just adds a little bit more of an element of, I got to go find these materials to go do this so I can make my game a little bit easier, quality of life a lot easier. Always going to be a smart way to do everything. So, and that coincides with, the rest of, your spacesuit engineering and making, pharmaceuticals or making higher quality crafting ingredients so that you can do all of those things is the best, absolute best. Also, the mechanic of certain foods being able to increase your level of XP gain was also pretty cool. I mean, obviously they knew that it was going to take a very very long time to upgrade in a lot of ways. So um, I think having foods that increase your XP build for a short period of time is definitely a nice touch because it makes players feel like they are progressing further in the game doing these things, and completing quests might give you an extra 200 XP based off of the percentage boost or whatever, and that definitely makes for a better game. Absolutely. So moving on from that aspect, obviously I love the skill tree. I've always loved skill trees. It definitely allows players to, you know, decide what they want to be and the kind of character they want to be in the game. And I thought this skill tree was very, very diverse. There was a lot of opportunities to have skills in every single one of those slots. So it was definitely, geared towards a person who wants to complete everything. And that's what I gotta say I love. I feel like games don't do it enough anymore where you can completely max out your character. I know Elden Ring did, but and yeah, now Starfield is that you can completely max out the character, but there's just so many games now, and I'm thinking mostly of sports games at this moment that just don't really allow you to max everything anymore. All right, all right. Sorry for that interruption. So back to what I was saying, the aspect of having that large skill tree was definitely awesome. Plus, so many games just don't do that aspect anymore of having the ability to completely max out a character with all the skills. Um, it just doesn't feel like you know games really do that anymore. Um, or it certainly takes a ridiculous amount of time to finally get to it. So I definitely appreciated this game for having that ability. And I mean, again, I think of a lot of sports games that just don't allow you to completely get to that, you know, 100 overall or 99 overall. Sure, they tell you it's 99, but it's already in a specific build. I specifically thinking of 2K, where it tells you, you have a 99 overall character, and sure, they're good at a lot of things, but they're not the best in everything. And that's one thing that I feel like is really missing from certain games because I think that that ability to be able to grind towards that aspect of having the best possible character you can in the game only really contributes to more playability of the game along with replayability and all of that kind of stuff because in a situation where like you went guns blazing in one playthrough and now you've leveled up all of your stealth and marksmanship for another playthrough, you can basically play that style the second time through, which is definitely important and interesting, especially because you have that ability to do what you want to do in a different playthrough or a new iteration of the game or whatever you would like. So it's definitely fantastic to have the ability to be able to grind as much as possible to get all the skills you want, right? So that's another thing I liked about the game. I going back to I wanted to make sure that I touched on all the different kinds of gun types. I think they were all very good. Definitely left a lot of um, variety in what you could do if you wanted to be, a heavy gunman that's basically shooting practically explosive rounds and or like a grenade launcher, I guess, and then going to maybe a shotgun. It's a little bit better in close quarters, or if you wanted to have a pistol, move around a little bit faster, along with possibly going to uh, a rifle, which has a lot of variability in the rifle because you have certain rifles that are more like sniper rifles where they're kind of one offs for each shot, or like semi-automatic, and then you have full automatic guns like the Grendel or the I hope I'm pronouncing these right, the Maelstrom or something like that. Um, that are fully automatic. They might feel like they might not, or it might seem like they don't do a lot of damage, but it's damage per shot. So that's always important to take into account. Beyond that, the outposting mechanic in the game, it was certainly, I think, on my end, the most fun part of the game because it gets you a great deal of money and a great deal of XP over the course of time, which just allows your character build to be that much faster. And I think that was really smart of what they did because they knew that it was going to take a lot to get to that next level, especially when you start getting up past 70s into the 100s and all that. It takes a while to get the amount of XP that you need to level up and continue on that grind. So the ability to have an outpost that's going to get you a ton of money that can then maybe buy you materials so that you can utilize and you know XP farming by making a new component or something with the industrial workbench, as well as having you get a lot of money so you can upgrade your ship, and then you take out ships that will also basically be XP farming. But the the idea of those outposts were very fun because it almost felt like, well, not almost, it really was kind of a little sandbox feature. Obviously there were some problems with that in certain areas where if you wanted to outpost in a perfect location and then you get half of it taken away because of unforeseen reasons. Maybe there was going to be a ship that was supposed to land there and all that, and then you just don't get the opportunity to place the things that you want in that area. But I mean, other than that, I thought it was really fun. It was very, very varied. Um, if you wanted to build something a little bit more on the y-axis rather than the x-axis, you have, the opportunity for defenses, and people will come and raid your outposts, which always makes it a little bit more enjoyable and a little bit more fun. And then just that that feeling of being able to build your own complex is also really cool. And it definitely I put a lot of time into doing that, which definitely keeps me playing the game more and more and more because all I really wanted to do was to you know absolutely max out that outpost and generate the most XP that I possibly could so that I could continue playing the game and have fun with it with all the new skills that I acquire. Um, the main downside, which I will probably talk about a lot, is the inventory system as well as the over encumbered encumbrance. This game, I know that they were trying to go for something that basically made a lot of these players calculate what kinds of things they needed and what they didn't. But obviously, with this Bethesda game, you're allowed to almost grab just about anything, even if it's just random equipment that does nothing for you, like duct tape or weights. But they all have a weight, um, listed with them, and it was such a challenge to kind of figure out how to maintain that level of being able to move perfectly fine without it like just destroying your oxygen level immediately. So that was one of the things that I definitely was very annoyed with over the course of playing the game. And and I was just really kind of upset with the fact that you could pick up all these things, but some of them didn't really do anything besides just sell for a certain amount of credits, and usually something so trivial that you didn't even need to, because most missions are giving you 10 times that amount, or maybe even 200 times that amount. um, so that was pretty disappointing, as well as just not being able to fast travel. And in a lot of ways, you have to backtrack through these levels, um, after picking up so much of this stuff. And it's like at that point where it's like you're so deep down into this cavern or this dungeon or this outpost or whatever it may be, and you just can't move that well, and it just takes you infinitely longer to get to the point where you want to go, just to get rid of some of this stuff. And then at the end of it, you're like, well, now I just have to drop stuff that I don't need. And if you feel that everything in your inventory is worth saving, then you're basically SOL on that. You have to, waddle back real slow just to get back to your ship. And in some cases, the area that you had to go, your ship didn't land next to. So then you also have to run, based like 1,000 meters to get back to your ship from the area that you were just exploring. So it certainly, it certainly was an interesting concept. I get why they did it. Obviously, they wanted people to manage their inventory well, and obviously, if you have a lot of options to pick up, that makes managing it more prevalent throughout the game. But I gotta say, it was just absolutely awful to deal with. So another mechanic that I just didn't really like too much. Um, I mean, aside from just the amount of menu screens and all of that, another mechanic that just didn't really sit well with me was the powers. Not to say that the powers aren't cool. Um, I think they certainly did have their place in the game, but for me, I almost never used them. Like, almost never. And it's kind of a situation of like, why is it even here? You know what I mean? There were a lot of opportunities where I could have used it, but I would just end up shooting a guy once with the pistol that I had leveled up a lot, and it he would die, and I would need to use any of the powers, or need to fix that. So I mean, it just never felt like there was a situation where I needed to use the power. Um, in like any regular kind of mission. Um, Sometimes I guess I would use it against the Starborn in early on in the game, but I never really felt that you were supposed to beat him. So yeah, it was a situation where I felt like they just kind of put that in there because they had a little extra time, and they wanted to make it feel a little bit more fantastical, and all that kind of stuff of you being able to have powers that were dictated by touching these artifacts, or going to these temples to learn these powers. So that's just another thing that I mean, I didn't feel that it was necessary, and didn't feel that I needed to have those powers. And obviously it was not really a mission that you needed to do, but at the same time, like, I wanted to do those kinds of things because it gets me XP, but in the end, I never really used the powers. So it's they were cool. A lot of the animations, though, do feel similar, and that I think that comes from the idea that most of the time you're going to be playing first person, so you can really only see hands. So understandable there. But um, moving on, segueing to a different kind of topic here. Let's see. So the ideas that I would use for the future there from this game, the ideas that I would definitely want to see implement, uh, to see implemented into other games is one, the just the new game plus factor. I think that is always going to be an integral part of being able to keep players playing and just keep having their own opportunities to create new builds and kind of have new play styles, and then as well as being able to upgrade completely. And then that's another thing that I would definitely have in these kinds of games, because with that ability to upgrade completely, it just enhances the idea of replayability and playing with a different kind of build, and doing different things, and then just also feeling overpowered in the world. So it definitely is a grind aspect, but definitely still very very fun. Another thing that I would add to future games is um, the I don't really want to say the procedurally generated stuff, just because it is a lot of similar things, but just definitely the idea that there are multiple open worlds to travel to, and see, and have you know new experiences on. In one of the games that I've been working on is um, a game that has multiple different open worlds that all have their own kind of elemental gimmicks. So um, having the ability to transition from one large open world to another open world um, that's completely separate is definitely something that I would utilize in the future. And certain things that I would definitely scrap if I were to, take a look at this game and, make a new iteration. It's just the amount of menu screens and all that. I know it's hard to get rid of loading screens and stuff like that, but it's a situation where as we get better hardware, it's going to be more and more of a problem, because players are going to look at it as I paid so much money for this console or this PC or this game, and I have to wait, you know, 45 seconds in between every single door that I open just for it to render all of the things within the game. So, um, just making sure that a lot of the world is seamless is definitely paramount for games going forward, and just minimizing the amount of menu screens is going to definitely help that fact, and help players be engaged for much longer without having a forced break in the action. Beyond that, just I think Starfield was a fantastic game. I think it was a fantastic opportunity for Bethesda to go about and actually do. Yeah, there are a lot of things that I think that would make the game better, but I think they really did hit well on the aspects that definitely they held near and dear to. So um, I would definitely say that it is a game that I would recommend that everyone play, um, and everybody has a very equal chance no matter the play style. Um, which is also another good thing about the game is that all the play styles are extremely viable, and you don't have to worry too much about that kind of stuff. So they did well to make sure that the game was balanced and just fun. I mean, they built a very interesting world that definitely feels really believable, even though you're in this kind of post-apocalyptic, human expansion into the stars kind of deal. But I think they definitely made it believable and definitely immersive into the whole experience. As for any sort of technical problems with the game, I never really had any technical problems. I never really had too major of glitches. Um, I guess some jumping mechanics. If you get stuck in a rock, it doesn't allow you to jump when you're standing on the rock, and it's like if you start running, you end up falling right off. That is probably one of the most annoying things ever. But beyond that, never really had problems. I know PC had a few problems at the beginning, but that's as that's pretty standard for early on development. They're not always going to get it right for every console or every platform that they want to have the game play on. So all in all, definitely, I think Starfield was a fantastic game, and I definitely think everyone should give it a try. If you like open world or multiple open world RPG, first person shooting, or even third person shooting, it's definitely the game for you. So I would check it out. I would have some fun, explore the stars, and let me know what you think about the game. If you have any different ideas or mechanics that you liked or you didn't like, or aesthetics that you liked or didn't like, or anything like that, just let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to look at those and respond to a few that were very interesting and captivating, and things that I might have missed. So thank you, and y'all have a good one.